Hey everybody, Captain B-Nard here with your BHDL1 Week 8 recap and Week 9 preview. So, we're just going to go ahead and get right to it. So, our opponent this week was Stefan, a strong and experienced competitive battler. And going into this match, we were both sitting at a 4-3 record, so this was an incredibly important match for both of our teams, jockeying for position here in the playoffs slash wild card round. And so, fortunately, we were able to get the win in this game 4-0, but it was a very good game, very competitive, very hard fought game for us, and very happy to get the win this week to kind of snap the little mini losing streak we've been on, get back on the right track here, trying to head toward qualifying for playoffs. But yeah, having said all of that, we are going to go ahead and throw it over to the team preview screen. So there you can see the 6 Pokemon that he brought to battle on the right-hand side, 6 Pokemon I brought on the left-hand side. And so as you can see, he brought the Corviknight, Garganacl, Cyclizar, Iron Bundle, Toxtricity, and Armarouge. So, big surprise here on his team, or I should say not on his team, was the fact that he decided not to bring the Iron Valiant. So, I was very surprised by this because Iron Valiant is obviously a premier high point value threat in Generation 9 here in Pokemon. Very strong, very versatile, and it has the added benefit of being able to use my very own electric terrain on this draft league team against me. So I was very surprised that he decided not to bring that this week. Other surprise was he did not bring the Crocodile. So I thought Crocodile would have had a decent matchup against me this week as well. So again, surprised that he did not bring that to a lesser extent. But other than that, everything else on his team was pretty much as expected. So, looking at my team that I brought this week, we have the Arcanine, Slowking, Hawlucha, Gudra, Earthworm, and Iron Moth. So, big omission here on my team this week was the fact that I, for the first time this season, did not bring Pink Urchin to a battle. So, obviously, Pink Urchin has been a cornerstone of my team. Obviously, with this being a little bit of an electric terrain strategy on this team, Pink Urchin's been very helpful and useful. However, I chose not to bring it this week just due to the fact that my opponent had multiple Pokemon on his draft that could potentially abuse the electric terrain against me with their Quark Drive abilities, those being the Iron Valiant and the Iron Bundle. So I thought that it was too big of a risk to bring the Pink Urchin and that it would be better to kind of build around some other stuff, which is what I did. Other shock on my team, which is kind of related to that, is the fact that I, for the first time this week, brought the Slowking to battle. So, to be fair, Slowking is a Pokemon that I did not originally draft on this team. I picked it up post week 4, I believe it was. So it hasn't been around from the start. But even so, this is the first week that I've brought it to battle, and definitely didn't disappoint. And so, yeah, that was pretty much my squad there. Other than that, pretty standard. Not really much of any surprises there. So, having said that, we are going to go ahead and throw it over to the weekly pros and cons. So here you can see we are going to have 3 pros this week, only 1 con. We're going to go over them as per the usual. So the big pro of the week, obviously this week, is we ended up winning the game 4-0. So that ended up being actually the biggest victory numbers-wise that we've had all season here. Very sorely needed, as I mentioned before, to kind of get back on track. Going into trying to qualify for the playoffs here. So yeah, that is the big pro of the week, is getting that big 4-0 victory, very much needed for our team. Other pros of the week, though, include I feel like we played pretty well this week, which was, again, something we really needed to kind of get back on track. A couple of examples of this throughout the game are early on in the game here, we had our Earthworm in against the opponent's Garganacl, and so he does decide to switch the Garganacl here directly into the Armarouge, knowing that we had revealed we had a body press an Iron Head on deck. And so we actually predict the switch into Armor Rouge and go for the Earthquake, which gets a big shot off on the Armor Rouge, knocking it into the red, making it easier to pick off later. So that was pretty nice for us. Additionally, later on in the game, we were in a situation where we have Gudra in against the Iron Bundle, and so we decide to leave Gudra in rather than switching it out, as my opponent decides to flip turn pivot out on the Gudra, and then goes ahead and brings in the Corviknight as we go for the Thunderbolt and get a huge shot off on the Corviknight with the Gudra, knocking that into the red, I believe, at that point as well. So yeah, those were some pretty nice plays on our side that definitely ended up helping us inevitably get the win in this one. And the last pro here, I would say, is that I feel like our prep for this game was pretty solid, which, again, not to beat a dead horse, was something that we really needed this week. As I feel like I did put a lot of thought and effort into this week just because we really needed this win. As I had mentioned a couple times now, I believe this was the most important week for us this season thus far. So, but yeah, going back to the prep, I feel like our prep was pretty solid for this game. This kind of feeds back to something that I had said earlier with not bringing the pink urchin. I feel like even, obviously in hindsight, it might be a little different, but even so, I still feel like it was a good decision not to bring the pink urchin because the risk to us of having our own train abused against us was just too high to bring the pink urchin this week. So, yeah, I feel like that was a solid decision. Additionally, having the Slow King on deck with the chilly reception so we could get pivots was definitely a solid decision as well, and definitely ended up helping us out in this one. So, yeah, that's going to go ahead and lead us into the cons. And I could only think of one con this week, and that is there were some mild hacks on both sides of the battle. So, best example of this was actually, again, early on in the game here, where we have our Earthworm in against the opponent's Garganackle, and we stay in, go for an Iron Head, trying to get a big shot off on that thing, get some huge damage. Indeed, we do knock that thing down to about a quarter HP in that point, I believe. And we actually do end up getting the flinch on the Iron Head. So that was actually very, very important for us because I believe that Garganackle was trying to go ahead and set Stealth Rocks up on us, which would have been really bad. That would have really limited our ability to switch in and out of the game, obviously. So getting the flinch there was pretty important, allowing us to keep the hazards off the board, and he would not actually ever get another opportunity to set those hazards up. So that was pretty clutch for us at that point. But on the flip side, a little bit later in the game, we had a situation where we were switching our Slow King in on the opponent's Armor Rouge, and so he ends up going for a Flamethrower here and actually gets a crit on us, which takes us down a little below half, which actually ended up making a bit of a difference there because that meant we couldn't safely stay in on another attack for that thing, and we had to immediately switch out once again with the Slow King. So that definitely altered the course of our plays as well, getting critted there. But yeah, I wouldn't say there were a couple other little things in the game that mattered even less than those things by far. But overall, I would say none of those hacks I feel were like super egregious, or none of them single-handedly won or lost the game for anybody. But yeah, anytime we have some hacks stack up, we have to consider that a little bit of a con here in the game that we play. But yeah, once again, very solid game, very hard fought and well played, I think, on all sides. And yeah, just an all-around good one. And of course, as I mentioned before, with this victory, the Philadelphia Pidgeys advanced to a 5-3 record here in the BHDL1 going into the final week of the season. And so, having said all of that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the final week in the season here and what it means for the Philadelphia Pidgeys, what has to happen in order for the Philadelphia Pidgeys to make a guaranteed playoff spot. So, once again, here you can see the current standings in the league for all 16 teams here in the BHDL1. And you will also immediately notice that Two of the teams have actually went ahead and played their Week 9 game already, so their numbers are going to be set in stone. That is only going to further aid us as far as determining or understanding what we have to do or what has to happen for the Philadelphia Pidgeys to get into the playoffs here. So, essentially, I'm going to kind of do this the same way I did it last time we looked at standings, and it's actually going to kind of break down very similarly to that analysis and breakdown here. So, I'm going to divide the standings for the teams up here basically into three separate categories. And so the first category is going to be the top three teams, teams 1 through 3, that are all mathematically guaranteed to be in the playoffs. And obviously, the two teams who already played their Week 9 games are already in this boat here in positions 2 and 3 currently. So yeah, those teams, even if the team in first place here were to lose their Week 9 game, they are still mathematically guaranteed to get one of the top 6 playoff spots here. So, not really too much to talk about as far as those teams go. Similarly, at the bottom of the list here, as fate would have it, teams in positions 11 through 16 are in the exact opposite situation, whereas all of them have actually been mathematically eliminated from playoffs contention at this point. So, regardless of what happens in Week 9 here, none of those teams are able to qualify for even a wild card spot here in the BHDL1. So, that is going to leave the middle of the pack, numbers 4 through 10, of course, one of which is myself. And this is where the intrigue is. This is where the interest is. This is where the excitement is going into Week 9 here in the BHDL1, because all 7 of these teams, again, one of which is me, could either be in a guaranteed playoff spot or a wild card spot, depending on how this week goes. And I'm pretty sure that every single one of these teams has the possibility to be either or, which is very exciting, I think. So, obviously, we have, as you can see, 5 of these teams, again, one of which is me, the Philadelphia Pidgeys, that have a 5-3 record, all with pretty tight differentials here, ranging from +7 to +3. And then we have 2 teams that are sitting at 4-4 records here that have a little bit lower of the differential. So, what does that mean for the Philadelphia Pidgeys heading into Week 9? As I mentioned, we are already mathematically, actually, interestingly enough, all 10 teams, or I should say more specifically, all 7 of these teams are guaranteed to either be in one of those guaranteed playoff spots or wild card spots. So, obviously, that means that the 3 teams with the best record at the end of this week of those 7 will get those 3 guaranteed playoff spots. The 4 teams with the worst records after this week will get those 4 wild card spots. So, again, what does this mean for the Philadelphia Pidgeys, and what do the Philadelphia Pidgeys have to do, and what has to happen for the Philadelphia Pidgeys to get one of those guaranteed playoff spots rather than have to fight in the wild card round? So, we're going to go over that now. So, obviously, first and foremost, we have to win. So, we have to win our Week 9 game here. If we do that, we go up to a 6-3 record, and we have a very, very, very good shot at making a guaranteed playoff spot. If we lose, I don't think there's any way we make a guaranteed spot. There might be some fluke, freak way that if the exact teams that we need to win their games win and the exact teams we need to lose their games loses, that we might still sneak in to that guaranteed spot, but I kind of doubt it. And even if there were a chance, that chance would be so vanishingly small that it's not really worth entertaining. So we won't really delve into that too much. But essentially, we need to win, and not only that, we need to win by a pretty decent margin too. So a very slim victory probably might not cut it, I should say, for us. So we need to kind of win by a pretty decent margin. And in addition to that, there are a couple of other games this week, 2 to 3 actually, that are going to have serious implications as to the future fate of the Philadelphia Pidgeys. So we're going to talk about those games briefly as well. So other than our own game, obviously, the most important game for the Philadelphia Pidgeys this week is going to be the matchup of a Praetor versus Scorpion. So these are actually two coaches that we've already played in the regular season here, and one of which, Scorpion, we actually defeated in Week 5, the other of which, a Praetor, we actually lost to in Week 6. So ideally, as far as the Pidgeys playoff hopes go, we would want Scorpion to win this game. Reason being is because since we defeated Scorpion earlier in the season, we do have the head-to-head tiebreaker over him. So if he can defeat a Praetor, who is someone who we do not have the head-to-head tiebreaker over, that would definitely greatly increase our chances of getting into one of those guaranteed playoff spots, 4 or 5 or 6. So that is going to be a very important game for us, very important one to watch. Not quite as important, but still important in its own right. Another game that we need to watch here is going to be Emerald Miner versus Pokemaster 88. So these are one coach in Emerald Miner who we did play earlier this season and we did lose to in week 2, and another of which, Pokemaster 88, who we actually have not played, nor will we play in the regular season of the league here. And so ideally, for the Pidgeys, what we would want to see is we would want to see Emerald Miner defeat Pokemaster 88 in this game, because Emerald Miner, again, already is going to have a better record than us regardless, is already locked into a playoff spot regardless, versus Pokemaster 88 is going to be in direct competition with us for a playoff spot. So we would like to see, obviously, him taken down a peg, which would again improve the Pidgeys' chances of getting into one of those 4, 5, or 6 spots. Now, the third game here, and I say 2 to 3 games, and I'll explain why in a second, that could have serious implications for us, is actually the matchup of Icy Dude, the other 5 and 3 coach at this point, versus Shaggy. Now, this would be an important game due to the fact that we would want to ideally see Shaggy defeat Icy Dude, because then again that would take him down a peg in the standings, and that would give the Pidgeys a better chance at making one of those guaranteed playoff spots. Unfortunately, Shaggy has essentially been MIA from this draft league for the last several weeks, has actually taken forfeit losses the last 3 weeks of this league. So it is pretty much a foregone conclusion, though not official at this point, that he will more than likely be taking another forfeit loss via being MIA this week, which actually does hurt the Pidgeys a little bit, obviously, because that means one individual who we are in direct competition with for a playoff spot is essentially what it looks like more than likely going to get a free win this week, and obviously that will hurt the Pidgeys' chances a little bit at making it into the guaranteed playoff spot. So that just kind of is what it is. These things do happen in leagues, unfortunately. And I will say, though, for our league's part, in this league's part, I should say, we haven't seen too much of that compared to what other leagues go through. So that's positive. But at the same time, obviously, this is a critical point in this league. So it will kind of detriment us a little bit. But again, just kind of is what it is. So, assuming that is going to happen, again, those other 2 matches, including our own, are going to really be the important ones here to watch. So, having said all of that, we are going to go ahead and take a look at our Week 9 match here. And that is going to be against the Best Not Really. So, here you can see a snapshot of his draft league team on the screen. And so you can see he has a couple of very high point value threats here in the Meowscarada and the Dragonite. Those are 2 top level point value threats, very versatile Pokemon that can hit very hard, so definitely something to be concerned about. In addition to that, pretty much the rest of his team is filled up by a ton of Pokemon, I would say mid point value tier Pokemon that are very powerful threats as well. Those are going to include the Regidrago, the Hisuian Zoroark, the Donphan, the Rotom Heat, the Florges, the Paldean Tauros Aquaform. So yeah, those are going to be definitely ones to watch as well. This guy has a very well put together team once again, as most do in this league. And so, if you remember back from the other screen, this coach is actually already mathematically eliminated from the playoffs here, which means that there's really no benefit to him defeating me this week. So normally in a situation like that, which does inevitably happen at the end of each league, a coach can handle that one of two ways. So some coaches will just kind of essentially give up and say that it doesn't matter, so they won't really put their best foot forward in the game. However, based on what I've seen from this coach in the last few weeks, I highly doubt that will be the case, as I've seen this coach have some incredible games the last couple of weeks. Very good sets, very hard fought games. So this is by no means going to be a picnic for us. It is going to be another difficult week for us. Again, one that we really need to win to try and secure a playoff spot here. And so, as we've seen a couple of weeks ago here, just because a coach does not have the best record in this league doesn't mean that they are not a force to be reckoned with. As just a few short weeks ago, we did lose to a coach with a not that great record as well. So we definitely can't take anything for granted in this game, can't take anything lightly here. Definitely have to buckle down and come up with a good strategy to tackle this coach. I'm already in the process of doing that, although obviously not going to say anything about that here because I don't want to shoot myself in the foot any worse than making these videos already do. But yeah, it's definitely going to be one to watch, definitely going to be an important game, and hopefully we can continue to build some momentum here, and hopefully the Pidgeys can secure a spot in the BHDL1 playoffs. So, but that'll pretty much do it for this one. So that's it. Thanks for watching again, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, and or subscribe if you did enjoy, and stay tuned for more new videos in the future. So that's it, and we'll see you next time.